Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Brian if you're new around here, but if you're a returning subscriber, I just want to say thank you so much for coming and checking out today's video. This one really means a lot to me. This is an exciting topic. The difference between video game AI and the theoretical AGI, ChatGPT, what does that mean? Will we see these technologies make their way in development? But ultimately, what is the core difference? And this comes from you guys. Mr. Dade County, who is a recent subscriber, just checking out the channel, is asking this question. We're going to go through their post in just a second. But ultimately, I think this is going to be a fun topic. So guys, if you have things and you want me to dive in, give you guys my dev perspective, my engineering perspective, sound off. Let me know. I'm hopefully can help better educate, maybe lightly entertain. Ultimately, the way I view myself and the content I like to produce is generally education with that in mind. There's a lot when it comes down to games and the passion that I have for games, but then also how I see them perceived and talked about online that doesn't necessarily mish and mash. I've always stated that sometimes I wish when I see people just dogging on game development that if they would go spend a couple of years working within it, that they would have a complete different change. Even if it wasn't direct game development, working in software development itself as just a field of practice, that would be massively huge. So let's go ahead and dive right in and bring it up. First, Mr. Dade says, hey man, my first time on the channel and I got one question on my mind. And it's with the advancements in AI and what it has to do with video games. Right now, every single video game out there's AI just feels bad. And even the best ones out of them aren't that great. Sometimes like the strategic ones that are out there, because you're playing chess. So it's not that difficult, but every single game AI is bad. Why is it that when they flank or whatever that the NPCs are doing, is it just coding for enemy actions? Is it that difficult compared to everything else in the game? Or is it just that it is not a top choice when it comes to designing a game? And I'm asking you this because you said you're a game developer. Now, I want to bring this up. I have built games. I continue to build games as a hobby. I am currently not in the game development world, but I am in the software development world. There's a lot of parallels, and I've worked with a lot of really great people. I got a lot of friends that still are in game development, and maybe I'll get back into that at some point in the future. But I just want to clarify that I do not actively work for like Xbox or Amazon or any of the game development studios at the moment of recording. But if that changes, I'll be sure to keep you guys up to date. Now, I just wanted to clarify that just real quick. So when it comes down to this and the video games, whether it's Sony, PlayStation, Xbox, PC games, the AI is all really bad. Everything from Skyrim to you name it. I can't remember the last time I played a game where the AI was actually intelligent. Supposedly, these consoles and PCs and graphics cards have an AI chip in them. Is it not being used? I'm a bit lost, and I'd like to get some kind of clarification from someone who's designed games before, and it makes it so difficult to make enemy AI intelligent. Is it because that you have to code every single action, or that it just takes too long and the cost would be ridiculous? I don't know, so hopefully you can help answer this for me, and it'd be great because I feel like AI is just never gonna get better, even with ChatGPT. Now, AI is also being very scary, but superior, and I feel like no matter what, even if we use this sort of AI into gaming, it's just always going to be bad. I'm also thinking that maybe it has to do because of the AI, if it's learning off of the way that you play, and it's going to be difficult, and maybe people are just not going to want to play it. But then there's always the easy mode. If you play on easy, you could turn it off the actual AI, but if you want to play a real AI simulation, maybe what is the hard mode would be like. I don't know. I mean, again, I've never really designed a game. I do know some coding and I've worked on some mods and things like that in the past, but this has really never been something that I have ever touched upon. So I'm just curious. So thank you so much, dude, for that epic comment. So I said, hey, I'm going to make a video about this, and that's what we're all doing here. So there's a few things I want to kind of break down first in terms of just the general idea, some assumptions that are being made. Video game AI isn't anything like the new AI systems that are coming on the market this year. And when we talk about AGI, artificial general intelligence, that's still hypothetical, or like that's either locked behind the walls at Microsoft and Google and Amazon right now, or that's still getting ready to be released at some point in the future. So that's a kind of big difference. Now, when it comes down to it, we'll talk about more of the key differences here in a little bit in the video itself. But when we talk about video game AI, These are best thought of as scripts, and the programmers set up various different rules for the scripts to follow. And there's three kind of main categories that these all get hodgepodge mixed together in various different ways. And to kind of summarize this, you have FSM, this is finite state machines, as I stutter through that. You also have the option of behavioral trees, and then the other option you have is goal-oriented action planning. Think of this as kill the player, find food. It has a various set of beliefs that it has, like maybe the player location and so much more. And so these are kind of three ideas of different AI for video game scripting systems. But the key aspect of the reason why, because your point towards the end actually is really hitting the nail on the head, is would it be fun? Now, video games in general, we can take Elden Ring and set Elden Ring off to the side for a second, because it's still a beatable game. You can still beat Elden Ring. It's just a matter of your time investment. But video games target around a 70% win rate. That is obviously a part of its entertainment value. Like, what is the goal of a video game? And it's at its core an entertainment product versus something that is designed to do some really difficult computations and more, especially when we start talking about ChatGPT. The goal of that is to have and normalize in a very natural way how humans interact with it. We really haven't seen that yet. So typically, even interacting with other humans online has always been an interesting challenge over the last couple of years. But within the ChatGPT area, we're talking about making it a way more natural style, conversation, one that feels like you're talking with another human to emulate kind of who we are. And this could have a good impact on video games. But let's talk about these techniques that I brought up. Finite state machines. For example, think Pac-Man as an idea here. So these are used to organize and represent an execution flow, which is useful to implement in games. Think of the ghosts, like I said in Pac-Man. These are FSMs. They can roam, they can chase the player, they can evade the player. They have different states. And if you don't know about states within video games, think of even your menu, like the start menu, like an in-game menu, pause screen, the game mode, the loop, the level. Like, these are various ways and ideas of the state, what is happening in the game. And so within that, you also have that kind of logic that you can bake into that AI. And obviously, like, if you're thinking about modern games and you're like, well, I want them to do more than just Pac-Man. Obviously, they have continued to get upgraded in complexity, and the tools have also improved. But again, when it comes to the design of the game, like, what is the purpose of the game? Because if it becomes super difficult, people are just going to end up turning it off, and then that becomes a bigger conversation in and of itself. Now, behavioral trees, as an example for design here, these are hierarchical structures that represent the logic and the different priorities of NPCs' behavior. Think, you're talking with an NPC, quest text, you have various different things, and then you unlock new nodes by doing quests or getting key items, and then that can completely change the options and the dialogue that are available for the NPC. And so this is a good way of kind of having that aspect. I do wonder if this in and of itself could have an impact with ChatGPT more than anything else in terms of both generating the quest text, but also having, you think about those old, games in which that you would type in certain, key phrases and words to try and play them, the text-driven adventure games. It would be interesting to see ChatGPT brought into that to have a more natural language-driven model. Now, the other option that we can talk about here is goal-oriented action planning, or GOAP. In this case, this is systems that allow the NPCs to plan their actions based off of their various different goals and beliefs. So these are things like maybe kill the player, find food, shoot the gun, eat, run, etc. Now, based off of these beliefs, they might have the location of the player, or maybe where they could find food. And so that the AI in and of itself is going to make decisions about them doing this. So it's going to basically search for their various different sequences of actions that you can achieve this goal with the current set of beliefs. For example, an NPC might have a goal of killing you, and the belief is that you are behind the wall. The system might then find a path that involves moving around the wall and shooting at you. A good example of this would be the game Fear. This is built to react various actions that you take as a player and then make decisions based off of the NPC's goals, whatever those goals might be. And yes, those then have to be programmed, aka scripted, by somebody like me. And then it can also be something where, is it good enough? And it sucks to kind of say that, because I know we all want these really immersive experiences. We're really kind of craving some of that. We're thinking that as games get better, some of these systems might be, but there's also kind of a lag time. So outside of these systems of AI, we are talking about especially AAA games. They're being built, ones that you'll be playing in 2030 are being planned now. And the reason is because the amount of lead time, the amount of effort, the amount of work, the budget, setting a schedule, like all of these things are so boring to put into a YouTube video. Be sure to like the video if you guys are enjoying it, as that's going to be a great way of helping it out. But at its core, a lot of the things that actually make video games fun and successful is actually having a cohesive plan and vision for those right from the start, and not changing it up all the different times. And a lot of times you have teams working on completely different systems, and then eventually they have to kind of be brought in and folded in together and hope that they work. And if they have a good plan and design, generally speaking, that is going to be the case. But that brings this all to the point. Video game AI is actually focusing on entertainment. It's focusing in on that aspect. And the better they make it, we start to have to ask all these other kinds of questions. Like, well, if they kill you, are they going to understand every different attack plan that you've made, try to guess what you're going to do, and stop you repeatedly and mercilessly? What we actually see is the opposite. When video games find that players are hitting these different walls, they subtly scale it back. Maybe they don't spawn as many enemies. Maybe they reduce the damage overall. This dynamic difficulty adjustment has been in video games well back into, I think, maybe even the GameCube, if not earlier, in terms of its design, because the goal is that the player is having fun. That doesn't mean you can't challenge the player, because a part of the challenge and overcoming the challenge can be that fun, but that's going to still kind of be your be all end all in terms of it. Now, when it comes down to like AGI, ChatGPT, this is a little bit more difficult to talk about, because these are also black box systems. You talk to any of the devs who are working on them. This deals with neural nets, with the idea of training these various different systems so that they have a very human and natural feel. But it doesn't necessarily mean you might get the right answer right now. We were actually seeing plenty of examples where it's built to lie, because it's trying to have a more natural conversation like you and I are having right now. However, as these things improve, at some point you might question whether I am an AI or not. And that's a reasonable question to ask, because we're already kind of see those kind of things being put together, being able to generate video and audio and text and so much more just to make you believe in something. These systems can definitely be brought into video games, but that's going to be a function of tools, and that's going to be a function of time. So as they start to roll out now, you're going to start to see, and especially at game developers conferences and more, them utilizing, bringing in these systems, testing them out, seeing where they can help. I think when it comes to AI specifically, outside of video game AI and you playing against them, I could see a lot of things going into testing the game. I can see a lot of things of like generating user data and how people play games, and then having that run through the game itself over and over again to find all these different bugs. So when it comes down to it, I think AI is going to have a huge impact on video games outside of just how they play, but how they're built, how they're managed, how they're supported. Maybe not necessarily where jobs are reduced, but your, velocity is the term that we use. Your velocity in development actually picks up the pace. Because as we've seen games really age into 5 years, 6 years, and 7 years, it creates a huge problem. Used to be games were kind of being turned out in 2 to 3 years. Obviously, this is back before all the latest, and the newer technology has made it easier, but the bigger games take bigger teams, and even those bigger teams take longer time. And the thing is that becomes more of an HR, a more human problem than any kind of AI system that you and I have ever experienced. Because you tell me, when was the last time that they chained you to your desk and didn't say you couldn't go try something new? I would hopefully the answer would be never. But if the answer is not that, seek out help immediately. But that's the whole point. You know, like when we talk about these, like AI is only one piece in the puzzle. We are talking about so many different pieces. AI, I think, is the thing we're going to interact with the most outside the visuals and obviously the response and how it feels to play the game. And I do think that it will be a little bit longer, but we're going to start to see some interesting implementations using some of these newer tools, etc. Because the ultimate goal is that we want these games to be fun. And how can we best utilize these systems to make it fun? And I think it ends up becoming the idea of immersion. That's kind of where I want to leave this video on. So in conclusion, I think when we look at AI and the levels that it can advance to in the future, hopefully we're going to see a more immersive experience that allows us to really dive deep and explore and have a lot of fun, and in a way feel like these characters are more real. But they're still characters, and especially in a game where you're trying to tell a story, you don't want to necessarily ruin that immersion, because imagine all of a sudden an NPC starts trying to sell you something and you're like, hey, I thought we were fighting. You like, I could see in terms of it, like without it being trained and managed properly, we just want to set it loose, out in your game to ruin your experience, so to speak. So anyway, I hope this video has been useful, helpful, and then hopefully you've got some really good insights from this. Hopefully you learned something. I did, as I was sitting down to just trying to organize my thoughts. So thank you guys all so much for hanging out. So if you guys enjoyed it, like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And thank you guys so much for watching. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But until then, take care.